Every week, we like to check in with Steve Young and kind of get his read on the current state of the San Francisco 49ers because he's typically on point. Like, there's very few opportunities where I've really ever disagreed with Steve Young, and he's typically been proven to be right way more often than not. But this one is a little bit bittersweet because it is the last time where Steve will be joining Tolbert and Copes. Obviously, Tolbert, this was his last day on KNBR, so this is a little bittersweet on this one, but I do think they have a good conversation about kind of the 49ers and where they currently stand, especially with this game against the Bucks. So take a listen right here.
Where we at with the Niners this year? Because we know they have the talent, but they have these games like they did in Tampa where they outgained the team 2-1, look like the dominant team play to play. Like if you ever watch a cut up of that game, you go, the Niners could have won that game 35-10, 35-3, should have won that game. Yeah. But they didn't, and it's happened 3 times this year. 2 times they've lost the game, Arizona and the Rams. This time they won the game. I'm just waiting for them to kind of gain that traction and like look like the team that we all think they can be.
Well, I mean, the parts of it that do look familiar are the big chunky plays in between what is kind of the rank and file area between the 30s. I mean, you get the ball now at the 30, 35, so you only got a couple first downs and you're in field goal range. And so we're smashed. Like if I don't know what the stat is for us between the 30s, we've got to be top 2 or 3 in the league, right? Just getting up and down the field. But then all of a sudden we're hitting the red zone and just, we're 1 of 3 last week, and we're kicking a lot of field goals and missing some field goals, which makes it even worse. And you know how I feel about that. And so it's explosiveness, and that's how you smash people when it felt like you should have last week, is that you throwing up 7, another 7. That's 28-10, or 28-7 at halftime. Then it's 35, and then that's how you do it. And you kick a bunch of field goals, miss a couple, and then all of a sudden you're just holding on for dear life. And that's exactly what I talked about last week. Every field goal you kick, you're closer to losing, just because I've lived it. And that's it. Because defensively, look, when we play really good teams, we're going to find, next couple of weeks we play, I guess we got to go to Buffalo. That'll be awesome to kind of just check out how we're doing, how it's feeling, and what you're thinking about. But I think that's the key. And we've got to be 30 points plus like we were last year in almost every game, or we're going to get beat. And we'll get beat here and there, and then when we get into January and February, we're going to get beat as well. So there's very few teams in the playoffs, especially the NFC, that's gotten better, that I don't think are going to, that aren't capable of putting up 30. And so we just, same play last week's show, and we're good.
Yep. Did it mean much to you? I mean, we talked to Kyle earlier today, and the whole thing on the sideline between Debo and Peppers, and it just like, that's kind of teammates, sometimes in a heated moment you may say stuff that afterwards you'd go, you know what, maybe I was a little out of pocket there, but that's just, it happens. And I think guys that play the sport, or women, understand that. Like, some things are said sometimes that aren't necessarily, you don't take them at face value. A lot of people made a big deal out of that. I really didn't, because I thought it was pretty squashed early, but even at that, it just didn't seem like a big deal. Did it to you?
It depends. It's totally contextual, because there are times when that is the tip of the iceberg, and underneath the water is a big, huge pile of crap that has not been dealt with, that there's all kinds of issues and teams crack, and finally they show it in public. That's not the case here, I don't think. I remember when Travis Kelce screamed at Andy Reid in the middle of the Super Bowl. Yeah. You're like, but teams that are built, and have gone through a lot of stuff and have, and the locker room's pretty strong. Like, I feel like our locker rooms, I feel like it was stronger, in previous years, but it's still super strong and led by super cool people. So to me, these kind of little things there's not a lot under the surface, I don't believe. And so that's why I kind of like you. I'm like, I don't really care. And then Debo, I think, was awesome after the game. Like, look, I was out of character. I didn't like it. That's what you have to say. Kind of get it past people, because when the superstar takes on the long snapper, that's not fair. you know.
Yeah.
that's an unfair fight.
Was there anything that happened during your playing career that you felt like you had to address because of what was going on the sideline?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of little skirmishes. That's what I mean. If you got a great locker room, and how many times have I said, if the coach has to come in and settle a score, or someone else, if you can't self-police, your locker room can't figure it out, you're doomed.
Yep.
And so we had lots of stuff, and it got handled in a way that didn't break us. And there were some, I mean, and like, you know, there's some odd dudes. Like it wasn't like it was just 50 guys all aligned and everybody's just the same and ready to, you know, I'll do anything to, you know, there's all kinds of characters, and you have to have that, like Bill Walsh used to call it, shared common experiences, and that relationship that, you know, you kind of lean into when things are tough. And so when football, there's two times when the things are super tough: when you lose, and then when there's you know, you can double down with a little bit of skirmish, like when things start to break down in the locker room. And that's true in any sport, Tom. You've had it as well. When things break down in the locker room, it's hard to get back. But this is not that. But we'll keep a close eye on it.
Yep.
The frustration is there. And I think that's probably the frustration that Debo felt, is the frustration that you just talked about. Wait a second, we're running up and down the field. What are we doing here? And I think if you're not careful, you can blame the field goal kicker or the kicking team. And I understand that frustration, but the problem's not necessarily setting up for long field goals and missing them. The problem is we're not putting 7 on the board. And so in many ways, usually when things like that happen, it's like, you know, you point a finger, there's 3 more back at you, right? So I think that's a nice thing for Debo after the game. Like, look, you know, we've got to do our part too. And I appreciate that.
So let me ask you this. I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but so as a quarterback, you're almost the de facto leader of the team, whether you are or not. And I'm assuming most guys that play quarterback are probably have some sort of leadership quality, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be playing quarterback. Whereas in basketball, it could be point guard, center, whoever. Just anybody could be the leader. If that's not like who you are, like an outward leader who's willing to address those things, how do you end up getting comfortable in that, especially at the NFL level, where these are men that you're like dealing with and talking to and trying to get everyone to pull the rope in the same direction, as they say. Like, how, I'm wondering what that transformation was like for you. Was it easy? Was it natural? How'd you do that?
It takes time, and you got to win. I mean, if you're losing and you're the leader of the team, you know, it's on your head. And I think that's the key, is that you never, ever start pointing out, you know, I think I talked about the truest truth, but like there's a lot of stuff that happens on the football field, crazy stuff. And let's call it mitigating things people go the wrong way, balls are bouncing the wrong way, tip balls, you know, everything. And they're all truth, right? They're things that happen, and they could be the reason. Well, if that didn't happen, we would have won. Or if that didn't happen, that would have been an interception. Or that would have, like, that's all part of it. But if that's all you talk about, if that's what you point out, you'll never hold the locker room. The only way you hold the locker room is that no matter what, the truest truth is that the ball's in my hands. I'm the quarterback. I'm responsible, and you can't ever let that. That's why Richardson and the Colts a couple weeks ago, like the quarterback can never. You can't never start pointing fingers or whatever you're taking the plays off. I mean, it's a hard job, and there's 2 parts to the job: parts on the field and the part in the locker room. And a lot of great quarterbacks are doing well in the field, but they don't hold the locker room. And sooner or later, you lose games. You don't hold the locker room, and it starts to break, and then you can't get the help that you need. So it's a tough job.
You mean you never ran around incredible escape job, scramble for 15 yards, first down, and then took your hand and patted your helmet like, I need a break, get me out?
I'm out. You know, but you got to give people a chance to iterate. You know, the NFL doesn't allow to do that all the time, but they gave him a couple weeks. So he had 2 weeks penalty in the penalty box, and now let's see what we can do. Because in the end, you've got to have one of these guys that can throw it over the field. And how many times we talked about that, and run. He's got that talent. So you've got to flush that out. And then, you know, and I have a feeling that he will never do that again.
Yeah.
Like the rest of his career, no
not
matter how
a
long
chance.
it goes, he will never turn and say, "Hey, bro, I need a break." You know, he's just a one shot thing.
So as I mentioned at the beginning, it's the last time that we're going to hear this conversation, and it's kind of weird because I had already talked about this on this previous video I did with Kyle Shanahan, but uh, I love these two's conversation. It's one of the reasons why I share it and get clips from it is because I love the insight and I love the conversation that these guys have. Like this is these interviews with Steve Young is where I've really grown to appreciate Tolbert for a guy who didn't listen to KNBR growing up and you know only probably over the last couple years have listened to KNBR. Steve Young was, and this conversation was one of the big draws for me to KNBR and what kept bringing me back. And I love listening to them every week. I literally, it's the only appointment radio that I have is Steve Young. Now, obviously, we check in with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch because they drop some news information and things like that. But I look forward to Steve Young and Copes and Tolbert's conversations every week. And so it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that that's the last one. Obviously, it's unexpected. And for a guy who's been doing it for 28 years and for it to kind of happen like that in the middle of the season, basketball season's it's just weird timing. And it's just unfortunate because I know everyone who's involved with the station, I know it's not their decision. I know this comes from a much higher place. And it's just tough, man, because he is a huge reason why I started listening to Tolbert and Copes and listening to these Steve Young interviews and hearing what they had to say. And it's just such a natural conversation. He's so easy to listen to. He literally can talk about anything. The conversation can go somewhere where you never expected it to go and just still be entertained by it. So I do like the conversation that they had about the San Francisco 49ers, and I like what they had to say. It's a lot of I think what we would come to expect from Steve Young, considering the circumstances, but again, just kind of overshadowed by the fact that this is Tolbert's last talk with Steve Young. Again, it's been appointment radio for me. I know I've loved sharing these two's conversations we really started sharing them to the channel around 2022 when Brock came in and we were trying to understand and figure out like what Brock really was. And Steve, he had done such a good job assessing Jimmy that when Brock came in, he continued to do the same thing. So we were locked in. We wanted to hear what Steve had to say. And he was always on point. And it's just tough, man. It's tough world that we live in when stuff like this has to go down. But nothing but respect for Tom and everyone else over there at KNBR. I know these are hard decisions that have to be made and just tough, dude. Tough break. Let me know what you guys think about what Steve had to say. Let me know what you think about the whole Tolbert situation and all that good stuff in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.